We're here in the lovely city of Hereford, and we're asking the public, if you could ask God one question, what would it be?
I think if I got to see them, I'd ask, why don't you come and show yourself to everyone so we'd all believe?
I suppose the question for most Christians, and most non-Christians actually, would be, why does God allow suffering?
I guess if God is meant to be loving, then why does he send people to hell?
Do all religions lead to God?
What are you?
How do I know the Bible's reliable?
Well, I've heard Christians say that Jesus rose from the dead, but where's the proof in that?
In this episode, we look at some responses to the question, did Jesus actually rise from the dead? Mark, this is one of my favourite topics to look at, because I think everything is hinged on this. If Jesus rose from the dead, then substantiates everything we believe. If he didn't, as Paul says, then the Christian faith is futile, is the word he uses, futile.
Absolutely. No, I agree, and it's interesting. I was probably a little bit more excited than I should have been when I received the summons.
Oh, go on.
Yeah, but not to be prosecuted.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good news.
That's good news.
This was to be on jury service. Have you ever done it?
I haven't.
Mate, it's brilliant.
I've had mixed reviews.
Yeah, honestly, I loved it because I wanted to be a lawyer when I was a kid.
Oh, nice.
And this is like the closest I'm
Perfect.
ever going to get on this side of the legal system, right?
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating is when the judge, he swears you into a particular case, and he does a number of things, but one of the things he says is, I'm the judge of the law. I need to make sure everything that happens is legal. You lot are the judge of the evidence. It's your job to look at the evidence and decide whether the person was guilty or not guilty. And then he said, don't worry about the evidence that you haven't got. Only look at the evidence that you have got. And I remember in one case particularly, the only evidence we had were the word of a witness. And in this particular case, there weren't any external witnesses. It was basically the person that committed the crime and the person that the crime was committed to.
Right, got you.
They had to give their testimony. It's actually words. So it's like the smacker and the smacky.
Wow.
All right, but our legal system still deems that that's sufficient evidence for us to, and he wanted a unanimous decision for all of us to say guilty or not guilty. And it's interesting, isn't it, when you think about proving the resurrection. Often people talk about proof, they talk about scientific proof, but actually the words of a witness with 100% experience telling what they saw is really valid in a court of law.
Yeah, do you know what, interesting, talking about law, because I remember an analogy with police officers, and they said they do not want stories, because people often say, well, look at the Gospels, look at the 4 accounts, the eyewitness testimonies. They don't match up, they share, there's like discrepancies between them, but police officers, when they're looking for like eyewitness testimonies, they don't want 2 stories that are verbatim. They want stories that have different variations in them, because they're taken from different perspectives, and actually having that corroborates the evidence, and it really supports and strengthens it. And that's what we see in the Gospels. We've got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the guys who are writing these stories, the eyewitness accounts, and they've got different parts of the story in there, and it bolsters the story because it's sharing it from different perspectives, different personalities, that what they see, but that highlights that actually these eyewitness testimonies about the resurrection of Jesus has a lot of kind of substantiation behind it. But one of the things for me that I absolutely love is the Romans who are standing guard outside of the Jesus body. So he's in the tomb. Basically, the kind of disciples, they start sharing things about the fact that they think Jesus has been risen from the dead, and they've seen him. Now, they want to quench this. The Romans don't want this to get out. And so they actually try and blame the disciples that they've stolen the body. What I find hilarious about that, logically, if we think about it, the Romans could have rolled the stone away and been like, well, he's not risen from the dead because look, his body's here. But they don't. They try to blame the disciples. Now, that's hilarious in itself because the disciples were tax collectors. They were fishermen. They were teenagers. They'd just seen the person they were following for the past 3 years be crucified, beaten, stoned, tortured, whipped, horrible stuff happen. They were frightened out of their life and they went into hiding. So why all of a sudden would they come out of the woodwork, be spouting this nonsense that Jesus has risen from the dead, risk their own lives of beheading and persecution and torture and being, whipped or whatever? Why would they risk any of that except that they'd seen something significant enough that would allow them to risk their own lives And so you've got these eyewitness testimonies, you've got these these early manuscripts, you've got all this kind of stuff that comes together and presents this incredible case.
No, it does. And it's not even just within the context of like the Bible or those early manuscripts. So the Jewish historian Josephus, who wrote about a history of the Jewish nation about AD 90, he points out the fact that these disciples of Jesus, they knew he'd been crucified. They didn't abandon his discipleship and actually went around saying, we've seen him. We've seen this Jesus risen from the dead. This is an external source. I don't know a lot about evidence and proof and what have you, but I'm really fascinated. There's a guy called Frank Morrison who set out to write a book to disprove the resurrection, and in doing so ended up proving the resurrection. He was a top lawyer, and the same with a guy called Lee Strobel, set out from this standpoint. The resurrection didn't happen. I'm going to shut these Christians up once and for all, but in their investigations, coming from that bias of it didn't happen, they were convinced that it did happen, that Jesus really did rise again from the dead. It's interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting. Well, there we are. Could it be possible that Jesus did actually rise from the dead? There's a lot of evidence to support these claims, and that there's an invitation for you to go and look at the evidence and see, is it real, is it not real? Because the decision that we have to make off the back of that is absolutely life-changing. I'd encourage you, have a conversation with the people around you, find a Christian who you can maybe chat this through with, but we've got lots more helpful resources in our Discover More section that's linked with all of this, so enjoy.